Before I start this video off, I want to say that I am not liable, nor am I responsible for anything that you do as a viewer. That I'm showing you some traditional methods of canning that has been passed down to me by tradition, and just showing you a little slice of the way I live my life. Okay, we're going to do something different here. I'm going to show you guys how to make your own sauerkraut, and I'm going to pass along my grandfather's recipe for hot mixed vegetables. So let's get it started, shall we? The first thing you want to do is find you a nice head of cabbage. You can purchase your cabbage via a store, big chain store, or roadside places. I grow my own cabbage, but any good, tight form of cabbage, to whatever is your own choosing, will work. So as you can see, I cut the cabbage like that. Now you say, well, why didn't he hack at it? Well, I don't want to mess up the plant. What'll happen is I leave this like it is, it'll continue to create growth just like this red cabbage has. These will actually grow out and produce almost like Brussels sprouts that are edible. You can can them or you can cook them and eat them just like you can regular cabbage. So you can see the difference between red cabbage and your nice green cabbage. So you go from this, you harvest as I just showed you, and then you take it over here to the chopping block. Now this is when you can go to work with your knife. Cut all that bat off of there. You don't want to bring all this into the house if you don't have to. A lot of times if you grow organically, as I do, well, you'll end up with insects, some rot, but you end up with a much better, cleaner, safer product for yourself and your family if you go the organic route. So that's what I would promote. Stay away from chemicals and put up, I guess you just have to put up with the bugs. Oh yeah, one more thing about these peppers. When you're picking peppers, you should not have the tug on these very hard at all. They will come off very easy. If you're pulling on the pepper and it's still staying onto the plant, it's not finished. It's not finished. They come off very easy when they're done. Just a little bit of a tidbit of information there. Okay, so there you are. After their first things first, make sure your sink's clean. I wash my sink. I know that seems to be a little anal, but I do it anyways. I want my stuff to be super clean. So yes, everything rinsed and clean now, and ready to start to go to work on it. All right, well, all the vegetables are cleaned thoroughly. So are the jars and rings and lids. Now, since I'm cheap and tight with money, I will use old pickle jar lids. I only use the ones with a collapsible lid, so it takes good seal when it goes through that vacuum process. But lids do go bad. As you can see, that's rusted. That is no good. Throw it to the garbage can. Do not use rusted things. This, it has a bend in the lid. Well, it may not take seal, so that's bad. You don't want to use that sort of stuff. But this is a part of the process, everybody. You have to clean your vegetables and then get your jars clean before you can even think about packing them. So there's a lot involved in all this. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this up into 2 videos, right? And then we're going to come back in part 2, and we're going to talk about all the spices that are involved in this process of doing hot mixed vegetables, and or we'll cover natural fermentation for like sauerkraut. I like it with caraway seeds, which is a Bavarian style, or the old German style, which my family uses, and it's traditional to my family. But yes, we're going to do a part 2 to this, and we're going to cover all the basics here of spices. And I'll get all the vegetables cut and packed into the jars. But I will leave this with you. If you're using hot peppers, use latex gloves, because let's say you cut a whole peck of peppers one day and they're Hungarian wax, or let's say jalapeno, something like that, or even hotter, you're gonna wish you wore gloves, because your hands will be on fire. Okay, this is part 2 here. We're gonna do just a couple of jars of sauerkraut just for this demonstration. As you can see, just start off by telling you the recipe. 1 full tablespoon, and I would recommend kind of a heaping scoop. I like it salty. I don't use any vinegar. Some people will use a couple of, drops of vinegar in the jars to promote souring, right? Maybe even help along the fermentation process, but I do not do that. So it's 1 nice scoop of pickling and canning salt. You can use good kosher salt, but do not use iodized salt. It will not look good. This helps maintain the color of the cabbage, and just the overall appearance is better with it, and it's better for preserving it. So I'm going to make one that's hot and one that's not. So I will hand cut these by hand. I will put the salt in last, unlike the pickled, the mixed vegetables. I pack my seasoning into the mixed vegetables right out of the gate, and then put the vegetables over top of it. No. I pack my jars, and then I put the salt over top of it. And then here's something that's key. It's the water. It's the water. Moon phases also helps promote, right, fermentation. So look at the Farmer's Almanac and look up your moon phases, and that'll help promote good fermentation. It'll keep a nice white color, keep your stuff crisp. But the water, yes, I have well water. It's hard water, but it's perfect for this. Most family members that I have do a lot of canning and this sort of thing, and I make about the best kraut in the family. And it's nothing really that I'm doing. It's the fact that it's my water. It's the water. It's that hard water. It really does well. So don't use, let's say, like city water that has chlorine and things like that, because it does not work. So yeah, get you some good fresh water. All right, I'm going to cut this kraut and pack it. All right, as you can see, I've turned it up on its side. Now, when you cut it in from its side, it'll create what you're looking for, is this really nice stringy stuff. That's what you want your sauerkraut to look like, right? When you take it out of the jar and you make you a nice thing of like kraut and Schweinesfleisch, you want it to look like that. Your kraut nice and stringy over the meat and all that sort of stuff. So that's just another tidbit if you're going to cut it by hand. Now, if I'm doing, I'm just doing these 2 things here. If I'm doing, let's say, anything more than 3 heads, right? Because it's a lot of cutting. Doing lots of kraut, I'd use a food processor. It's much quicker. All right, as usual, when you're packing jars, you're making a mess of things, right? You're getting crap all over the place. But as you're doing this and you see these big chunks, we don't want this in your sauerkraut either. But then again, this is good food. So what you do is you just set this off to the side and you put it in with your cut vegetables, and when you pack your jars for your mixed, hot vegetables and vinegar, and seasoning and spices, well, that's just a part of the thing, you know what I'm saying? If you do it all in one shot. So just a little bit more advice. All right, so now you have your jar here almost filled. I say almost because you want this stuff packed pretty good, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this meat tenderizer. Now they have tools to do this, right? But I'll just show you I guess we'll just call it the hillbilly way here, and that's making do with what you got. And we're gonna crush that down in there, but not stupidly. But you're gonna want, you know, to provide a little bit of force here, right? To pack that down into there. So now we got a jar we can work with, right? The next phase is just putting some salt in here and adding the water. Okay, so I've applied the salt in that jar. As you can see, I like a liberal dosage. About the only thing I like liberal is dosages. But anyhow, that's another subject. Now we're going to apply the water. Now I forgot to say something about the water. It's well water, but it's unsoftened. You don't want softened water either, right? No city water with chlorine, and you don't want softened water. You want straight up good old-fashioned cold well water. It's got to be cold water. And you just gently pour it over the top to finish it off. And then you'll fill it up, oops, all the way to that bead, the bottom ring. You'll fill it to that mark, maybe a little above. You're going to want your cabbage submerged. And then what will happen is it'll bubble up because there's air pockets. You can actually, you know, bounce it around a little bit and get it to settle, maybe pour more water into it to your liking. Now when you put your ring and cap on, I would say to keep it a little loose. So that way when the fermentation starts and it starts producing gases, it will not destroy your lid. Now what will happen is it'll leak a little bit. So you might want to put like an old towel underneath of it because some of it may come out. But then after like 5 days, you can retighten them and make sure, you know, they're tight. And then you'll see the process. They'll start going to work, right? This is living food, everybody. And when you eat this out of the jar, what you're doing is you're promoting good cultures in your digestive tract, right? Some enzymes and some other good stuff for yourself. This is health food. So, well, there you go. Outside of, oh, let's just do it. Well, see, it does tend to destroy them. So sometimes I'm not going to use that. It's no good. So, yeah, see what I'm saying? That was probably from kraut last year. It's the salt, everybody. It's very corrosive. Very corrosive. Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna let these sit for a little bit and let the water work, you know, down and let that air come up, and then we'll just cap it off and you'll see it. Voila, finished product. Now we're gonna go towards storage. All right, that there is some sauerkraut that's over 2 years old, and it's hot kraut. And it's still edible today. And here's our new finished product. I'm going to be doing a lot more kraut, but I just wanted to get this video done. On your storage, if you have a fruit cellar, use it. Basement, if you can utilize your basement, use it. I use a pantry, but nonetheless, the main objective is to use a place or spot that's cool and dark. You do not want your stuff getting sunlight in any fashion during this fermentation process. You do not want that at all. So yeah, a nice, cool, dry, dark place. We're getting ready to pack these jars now to do the hot mix. And we're going to start off with 1 teaspoon of salt per jar. So I put the teaspoon in each one of these. I did jars earlier in the year. I did 4 of them with a tablespoon a piece. So depending on, you know, if you want more sweet or salty, swing either way. All right, we're going to put 1 teaspoon of pickling spice per jar. All right, now we're going to use a little bit of dill weed. You know, a really good sized blossom is appropriate. About that much per jar. Dillweed, a little dash. Just a wee little bit. Just to add another layer to the profile of flavor. It does taste a little different. I don't know why, but it's just it's completely different than the blossom that I grow from home. Okay, now we're going to use some alum. Now, I wouldn't use too much. As you can see, it's not heaping, but you have to have it. If you do not add the alum, it will not be crispy. Now, when I open these jars 6 months from now, they'll have snap and a nice crunch, right? Nobody likes a soggy, soft vegetable, do they? All right, this part is optional. This is a little 1/4 teaspoon, and as you can see, I don't quite fill it all the way up. Mustard seed. All right, I recommend using fresh onion, you know, like whatever you like, you know, how much onion you want to put into your jar. But if I'm going to use minced onion, I use 1 tablespoon, and not heaping, but it'll give it flavor. But I would recommend using fresh onion for certain. Okay, this is the part where we put the garlic in. I recommend using minced garlic. You can use fresh whole cloves of garlic, that's even better. But we're going to use just powdered garlic and 1/4 teaspoon. Just enough to add flavor. Okay, this part here, this is very important. I mean, the sugar is really what sets this whole thing off. So we're going to use a whole tablespoon full. A lot of sugar, and I want mine heaping, right? Per quart jar. You can make it salty. You can cut back on the sugar. Hell, you don't even have to use any sugar if you don't want to. I know guys that just like it hot and salty, and then drink it with, or, you know, eat it with beer. You know, when they're drinking beer, it's just great. So there you go. Got to have that sugar, at least for this one. Well, I almost forgot. There was one more ingredient, and that's celery seed. But celery seed, you got to watch it. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way, so it's just a little dash. I mean, it wouldn't even be a 1/4 teaspoon, just a dash of it. A little bit of this goes a long way. Okay, now we're to the part where we're going to start filling jars with water and vinegar. So we're going to use cold water once again, and then we're going to go with a 50-50, 2 cups water, 2 cups of white vinegar. You can use different kinds of vinegar, red wine vinegar. Do not use malted vinegar, but apple cider vinegar uses, or actually it works very well. So I guess white vinegar and apple cider vinegar is the preferred vinegars. Okay, so we have 2 cups of vinegar and 2 cups of water. So the next phase is just to fill these jars carefully. And the same thing, you want to fill it up to the bottom ring. All right, I'll get back with you. All right, next step is to clean every one of these jar tops and go all the way around the bead and clean it with a paper towel, so that way you can put your ringing cap on. All right, so here you are. That's the finished product. You have to put these lids on very tight. Now, some people finish them out by putting them into a pressure cooker, or lots of different means, right, to get them hot enough to where they'll create the vacuum and kill all forms of bacteria. I'll come back with the temp. I can't remember what it is offhand. I do a lot of this just off the top of my head. I do not have to read the temps because I've done it so much and for so long. But there is a temperature, a desired temperature that you want to meet before you turn the heat off on these, and you feel comfortable that they'll take seal and they've killed the bacteria. Okay, so what I do here is I'll fill up this kettle with warm water from the tap and let it sit for just a minute to let my jars get accustomed to the warm water, so that way when I turn the heat on from the oven, the stove, it will not crack these jars. So you want to get it to the appropriate temperature and then take them out of there very carefully because they will be extremely hot, and then let them cool. As you know, take them out, set them on a paper towel or a cloth towel, and as they cool they will seal and you'll hear the lids pop down, and then you're good to go. So I'll be back with you with the proper temp that you're trying to achieve. Alright, so I've looked it up. It's 250 Fahrenheit. 240 to 250 Fahrenheit is what you want. You can do it with the caps on or off, whatever you choose to do. I kind of wing it. I don't take the temp because I know what it looks like by sight when it's done. The water starts to boil well. You can feel your jar. You actually see stuff inside of it rising. I mean, if it's hotter than hell, she's ready to go. All right, I'll be back when it's done and just show the whole thing here, the final product, and we'll wrap this puppy up. All right, we've achieved our temperature, right, our desired temperature. This can extractor, I would definitely recommend one of these, so that way you don't end up burning yourself. Works really great. As you can see, that purple cabbage is starting to bleed out. Now, I didn't put as much into this one on purpose because I wanted to show you the difference of color. Check that out. That's pretty. And, in your pantry, having colorful stuff in there looks great. Okay, one of the final things is, as you can see, because the intense heat, they're kind of domed up a little bit. When these cool down, they'll actually shrink down and you'll hear them pop, right? And then it'll be a flush, right? It'll be completely flush and flat. But you should hear your lid pop when it goes down the seals. So this is some finished stuff from earlier this year. In the process of sealing up your jars, cooking it up and sealing it, you can leave the lids on, but you can also leave the lids off, and then when they're hot, right, at 240 to 250, then you can put your lids on. But you must use this, right, so you can take the jar out, set it down, and then put your ring and cap on after the cooking process. It's hot to do it that way, but you'll never have deformed, caps. This one here, I'm noticing it's showing a little bit of a deformity because of the heat. So you run that risk when you put the lids on, to cook it. That happens. These two are already sealed, both of them. So I was wrong. I was very concerned about that, but it took the seal. That one's done. Almost done. All right. We're good to go, everybody. All four of them sealed. That's great. I tell you, it took a long time for these two here to go pop down. I had them in that hot water for way too long. All you want to do is get them to that temperature, about 240 Fahrenheit, and that's it. Get them out of there, right? But they were in there too long, but it worked out anyways. Normally, I don't can that way. I actually do the canning with the ring and cap off and set them hot jars down, right? Using this, extracting it from the hot water, and then putting them on carefully without spilling them, and that's because that stuff is hot. And then, I'm done with it. So, yeah, I normally don't do it that way, but because I was filming and I was using one hand with this, right, and the other one filming, I did it this way. And you just have to make sure you don't want them in there very long. You're not really trying to cook the things. You just get it hot enough so you can get it sealed and kill that bacteria. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you.